So I just got my DNA results, and I'm gonna give a little background about myself. I'm American, born and raised. My family, for the past about 4 generations, has been in America. So yeah, I just got it in a week ago. I actually already looked at it, but so I'm gonna just give a quick run through of my family, so y'all can get a basically guess at my percentages before looking at the results. So this is me. This is my mom and dad. My dad is from a town called Moore Station. They come from a line of people that they stayed in this town like all the way back till they were came from other places as sharecroppers, with slave masters. So yeah, I can trace it all the way back to then on his side, and then my mom's side, she is from basically the same area, about 20 minutes away. And so basically, all American, quote unquote, African American. So I was thinking about almost like 98%, just because how dark I am. We're pretty dark. My mom's kind of, and my sisters are kind of light skinned a little bit. But you can't really, I try to tell people, you can't really tell by skin color alone. Because that's just one variation, for DNA. So, I mean, I've seen people that have a white and black parent, but they come out real dark. So, yeah, let's get to my DNA results. The first big thing is Cameroon Congo, 35%, 34% Benin and Togo /Togo, 10% Mali, which is interesting, 7% Ivory Coast /Ghana, 5% Ireland and Scotland, 3% England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe, 1% Nigerian, 1% Basque. Let me see what that is real quick. Spain, let's say. So 1% Spain, 1% Senegal, 1% Baltic states, Europe, 1% Germanic Europe, 1% Native American, and less than 1% African and Central hunter-gatherers. Yeah, these are my percentages, which I don't know why because when they put it like this, I mean, all people really just want to see if the African and Europe, and you know what I'm saying, they need to make it where it's grouped. But it gives you actually pretty accurate composition of your DNA, as much as accurate you can get right now as far as the database available. Then on the bottom it actually shows early Virginia African Americans, and East Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana African Americans. So that's something new. I'm from past videos, I didn't see that. So it just basically shows that it can detect that the European is showing that I get more than likely get the European ancestry through the Virginian from them mixing. Then we got this other region, and it says Northeast Texas African Americans, which is pretty accurate considering I live in that area. So everything is not so much surprising. So I basically got like 14% European, which, so yeah, this is the timeline. So I'm gonna just quickly go through it. And see, it's showing, I guess it's correlating some of the ancestry I have listed. So I guess it's showing that correlation. So yeah, basically very accurate. So let's go to the DNA matches. From what I see, it basically is pretty accurate. And I was able to even trace my European ancestry, and it gives you option for close matches, distant matches. So, and it's accurate because you can actually access these other people's trees if they give you access to it, and it shows if you have a common ancestor. So, and you can actually click on this, click on a person that you share DNA with, and view who you share within that, who you share with. It said I had 14%, so I was like, 14% European ancestry. So I was like, where did that come from? Because from I was just trying to see if I could trace it. And I was actually able to trace it and confirm through two lineages, the European DNA and where it came from. So I was able to confirm it through because you can upload your DNA to other websites. So I uploaded it to MyHeritage. So after I uploaded it to MyHeritage, you can go to this option right here, and if you want to pinpoint ethnicity that you share with, you go through to the ethnicities option, and you can click who you share, the matches you share through ethnicity. So I actually went to Northwestern Europe, and when you go to, so it shows matches that you have through Europe, and I was able to find a family tree that linked with mine, and they identified as white. So, and so I was able to find it through this ancestry. So basically, I just went through them and went through the documents to see what they identified themselves as, and I came across a Suzanne Johnson, and lo and behold, from Alabama, race mulatto. So that's when it confirmed that this ancestry DNA is actually real. I was kind of surprised about the lack. Well, not necessarily surprised, but I expected more Native American DNA. So I thought I would have more Native American ancestry, but I only have the West Asian. It's saying West Asian on here, but it's actually Native American ancestry. I only have 1%. It's coming from my dad's side. So I was kind of surprised by it, but then I wasn't, because people don't understand there was a steady influx of African slaves. So this 1% is from way back. Probably I'm thinking like 6 or 7 generations. So when you're dealing with a steady influx of European immigrants or slaves or indentured servants, that they're gonna take over that genome. They're gonna take over their DNA. Especially, man, when I looked at some of my ancestry, they were having 16 kids. Some up, I think 19 kids was the biggest number I seen. So they just seen the straight hair and thought it was Indian. Our Indian heritage come from distant Indian heritage. So unless you're from a Latin American country, or if you because some of my cousins have like 20% Native American DNA. It just depends on some Native Americans. Some Native Americans they were dark, just as black people, and they were captured and thrown into slavery the same way, and they had children and they birthed. But this was way earlier on, and since their immune system wasn't, a lot of times they died off, but their children remained. So, and that was the end of that gene introducing that genome. The Africans were steady bringing, they were steady bringing slaves over here, regardless of our admixture of Native American. What really matters, though, is the culture. And that's what people don't understand. It's people today that still retain the culture, and that's what I believe is what Native American is, the actual culture. Just use these DNA categories as a reference, not actually, oh, I'm West African, I'm Nigerian. No, you're not. You wherever. We really, first and foremost, we all live on this earth. We're earthlings, in my opinion. But we do have countries. If anything, I would identify with the country you live in. So I don't necessarily, now that I have these results, I don't necessarily consider myself, oh, I'm 64% this or 3% this. I have predominantly African ancestry, but I do have traces of West Asian / Native American ancestry and European ancestry. So, but yes, it's interesting because I am dark. So this is the DNA composition of basically a typical what you call African American. I mean, this is African American as you go to get. So yeah, so don't, because I've seen a lot of videos where people, they damn near have a heart attack. Like, oh my gosh, I'm this and that. It's not that serious. I mean, I don't understand. It's not that serious. You are who you are. And some people even get upset about their European ancestry. We don't know exactly how that came about. So we can't just blindly spectate. Now, we do know the power dynamic around that time. And it could very well be from a rape or something like that. But it could very well be from a legitimate relationship. Because at that time, stuff did happen. We like that too. And so I wouldn't be very surprised with European DNA if you live in some type of melting pot, such as the United States. So if you're a quote unquote African American, expect some admixture. And if you're basically in any population that is a melting pot, expect, I mean, a multitude of ethnicities to pop up, but these are not identities. And I think that's what the confusion comes about, and the reason why people don't really care about talking about the confusion about it is because I think you can profit more on the confusion. People actually, this actually is changes people's lives after they get DNA tests. This didn't. This just confirmed basically, and what I already knew, and basically told me where I got the ancestry from through really through DNA too, but a lot of really through historical documents. If anything, I love the option through Ancestry to do this because I can see where they came from. A lot of people like this. Texas. Let's see. Texas. All these. So Rush, Texas. So all these are people from Texas. But the people that did come out of slavery, they did come from other places. But see, they're from Texas. Let's see. I know I got some. But see, we got Alabama, Texas, Alabama. So the DNA results along with documents is very useful to see your ancestry. But don't take this to where this is something, unless this is a paternal test to see if you're your father or mother or something like that. I wouldn't take it necessarily serious. It just, but I've noticed a lot of people that identify as African American, they have a substantial amount of European ancestry, um, like a lot of it. And I was able to talk to some of my great uncles and stuff, and they said a lot of people that identified as black looked white. One story my grandfather told me was a white lady, well, a woman that was of probably majority European descent, was a fugitive and just came down south and identified as black to, I guess, evade the authorities at that time. So a lot of that happened, and they mixed in, and a lot of people were revolted. And then you had a lot of white people that were against the injustices of black people, um, and they assimilated, and in doing that, probably had sex and had kids, because they did that a lot. I mean, you got to think about you did. These are slaves. These are people that didn't. Um, like my grandfather told me, he said his great, well, his grandfather, they didn't talk about, you know, their history or nothing. We found out all this through historical documents that were recorded by census and stuff like that. But he didn't necessarily know a lot of this because they weren't taught to even have. So it wouldn't even have. I mean, it wasn't like they got out of slavery and had a parenting class. So they or anything like that. We had to gradually uh, gain a sense of cultural history back. And luckily, through my family, I mean, we grew up. We had family reunions. Everybody knew the history, and it was like we kind of didn't even, like, slavery didn't phase us at all. So, and just taught to, stand on your feet. And then a lot of us, we descend from, like that sharecropping period where um, you left. Some people came out of slavery and then live side by side by their masters, and still till this day live in those communities side by side by descendants, the same, same people. So it's almost, and then they had children with some of those people, and people didn't know about it, and that's where a lot of times that European DNA comes in. But then you gotta understand this a power dynamic, and I can see why some people do get sensitive on that, because the power dynamic at that time meant anything could happen. But we also have to consider that there were free peoples and there were indentured service too. Everybody wasn't just born into slavery, like we're taught to believe, But yeah, that's my DNA results, and since my mom is 8% European, that means I only got 4% roughly of European DNA from her. So that means I actually got 10% from my dad. It's estimated. So that means my dad is more than likely 20% European. But we're gonna get his DNA tested, and it's 64% Nigerian. I've noticed Nigerian has been very Yup, man, Nigerian has been very dominant in African American DNA. So I like that. I like seeing that, because it basically gives you because that's the majority of my I can say majority of my DNA, more than half. So I can basically, I mean, that gives me a gist of where my ancestors did come from around that area. All this other stuff it's probably traces of just them migration traces. I mean, DNA doesn't have borders. They had to map this out, so it's not going to be something. That's why, I mean, when you see your results change and stuff, I mean, that's just typical. You got to understand they're dealing with segments of DNA, and it's very small. So it's but you give a rough, it gives you a rough estimate of your composition. I like it. Yeah, okay, so y'all go get it done. The link's in the description.